My name is Julia Bennett. I'm 34 years old, and last Thursday, my husband Ethan died of a sudden cardiac arrest during an overnight shift at the hospital. He was only 35, a healthy, kind, stubbornly selfless man, and now he's gone. The shock hasn't worn off. Sometimes I still expect him to walk through the front door with that goofy, tired smile, smelling faintly of hand sanitizer and coffee. But all I have now are memories and the ghost of his laugh echoing in the walls. When I called my parents, barely able to form words through my sobs, my mother answered on speakerphone. I could hear clinking glasses and music in the background. "Julia," she said cheerfully, "can this wait until tomorrow? We're celebrating Melissa's birthday right now." Melissa, my younger sister, had rented out a vineyard in Willamette Valley for her 30th. Private chef, Instagram photographers, coordinated pastel outfits. All of it carefully staged to feel spontaneous. Ethan and I had declined the invite. Chloe, our 9-year-old daughter, had a school recital the same weekend, and Ethan had a double shift at the ER. But now, my world was ending, and my own parents couldn't even hear it over the sound of background jazz and champagne toasts. I didn't even get a "what happened?" just a polite brush off. That night, I sat on the living room floor, numb, holding Ethan's sweatshirt in one hand and Chloe's trembling fingers in the other. She hadn't said much since I picked her up from school, just curled into me like a scared kitten. We were both in shock. I hadn't even had the strength to explain yet. How do you tell a 9-year-old that her daddy, her hero, isn't coming home? I stared at the front door, half expecting my parents to walk in, their faces pale with concern. But they never came. They didn't call. They didn't text. All I had was Ethan's phone, still buzzing with notifications from his patients, his coworkers, a dinner reservation reminder we had for Friday, now permanently canceled. We had met during a CPR class, of all things. I was renewing my certification for my counseling license, and he was the instructor, newly hired at Portland General Hospital, full of bad jokes and worse hair gel. He made me laugh when I didn't want to. That was his gift. And now, the man who saved lives for a living was taken by the one thing he always warned others about: silent cardiac arrest. The ER nurse who called me, Jake, was crying on the phone. I had to steady him. He told me Ethan collapsed mid-sentence during a consult. No warning, no signs, just gone. I barely remember the drive to the hospital. I know I ran a red light. I remember whispering bargains to God, please just let him still be breathing. But by the time I got there, they had already pronounced him. 2:42 a.m. I had been too late. He looked peaceful when I saw him, too peaceful, like he was napping. Except no one sleeps that still. I touched his hand. It was still warm. And I kept whispering, "Ethan, wake up. Come on, you're scaring me." But there was no response. Jake handed me a clipboard and a list of things I needed to handle. His voice was gentle, but the words felt like razors. Body transfer, cremation or burial. Death certificate, emergency contact. I was a widow before sunrise. By the time I drove home, the sky was turning gray. Chloe was still asleep at Ellen's house, our neighbor and my closest friend. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom for a long time, staring at the unmade bed, the coffee mug on Ethan's nightstand, the phone charger still plugged in. And then I broke. I collapsed on the floor, sobbing so hard I couldn't breathe. I remember clutching Ethan's pillow to my face, trying to drown the sound so Chloe wouldn't hear. The grief wasn't just emotional. It was physical. My chest ached. My arms felt hollow. My world had been ripped in half. That morning, I made a single call. One more try. My mother answered again, this time with less cheer, but just as much detachment. "Julia, what's wrong? You sound awful." "Ethan's dead, Mom," I said. "He died at work. A heart attack. I saw him. He's gone." There was a pause. And then, casually, she asked, "Oh, are you sure it wasn't just something else? Like maybe he fainted?" I nearly dropped the phone. "No, Mom, I'm not confused." I held his hand. I kissed his forehead. "He's gone." Well, that's shocking, she muttered. Then, to someone else in the room, tell Melissa I'll be right back. Julia's being dramatic again. I hung up. I had never felt so completely abandoned. That night, Chloe and I lay in the dark, clinging to each other. She finally asked in a whisper, "Is Daddy in heaven?" "Yes," I said, my voice raw. "And he's watching over us." She nodded slowly, then whispered again, "Can he come back if we ask really nicely?" I turned my head so she wouldn't see me cry. "I wish he could, baby. I really, really wish he could." The days leading up to Ethan's funeral passed in a fog. I moved like a sleepwalker through endless paperwork, funeral home visits, phone calls to relatives, and trying to keep Chloe from collapsing into the same black hole I was barely climbing out of myself. Ethan's parents, Helen and Frank, flew in from Spokane that night. They didn't wait for an invitation. They just showed up, grief written all over their faces, and wrapped me in a silent, trembling hug. "We'll take care of everything," Helen whispered. "Just tell us what you need." I hadn't even cried in front of anyone yet, but I crumbled in her arms. And Frank, a man who rarely spoke more than a few sentences at a time, bent down to eye level with Chloe and said, "You're still our girl, you know that, right?" She nodded, wordless, clinging to his sleeve like a lifeline. Meanwhile, my own parents, Carol and Brad, had not called again, not once. No offer to help with arrangements, no check-in on their grieving granddaughter. Just one text. "What time is the service? Also, is it a formal black tie or more of a celebration vibe?" A celebration vibe? My husband was 35 and collapsed in a hospital hallway. What exactly were we celebrating? Melissa texted too, a selfie from the vineyard days earlier with a caption, "Best birthday ever. Thanks for making it unforgettable, fam." I stared at it for a long time before deleting it. No comment, no mention of Ethan, just glowing skin and hashtags. The funeral was set for Saturday morning, a simple ceremony at a chapel Ethan loved, followed by a private gathering at our home. I sent out notices, called friends, answered questions I didn't know how to respond to. What did Ethan want? Did he want to be buried or cremated? We never talked about it. Who talks about that in their 30s? Chloe asked if she could wear her blue dress. "Daddy always said I looked like a painting in it," she said softly. We braided her hair together that morning, a small crown braid above her temple, just like Ethan used to do for her on school picture days. I wore black, of course. No makeup, just a small silver heart Ethan gave me the first month we were dating. It still smelled faintly like his cologne, or maybe that was just my grief making things up. We arrived at the chapel early to meet guests. Ethan's colleagues from the ER were already there, many of them openly crying. Nurses, orderlies, physicians, even a patient's daughter, Jake, the man who had called me that night, hugged me tightly and whispered, "He was the best of us." One by one, they shared stories with Chloe about how her dad made the worst coffee in the break room or how he once accidentally glued his own glove to a patient chart. She laughed through her tears, and I knew Ethan would have wanted that. At 9:42 a.m., I got a text from my mom. "Running late. Melissa forgot to set her alarm. Traffic from the hotel is bad. Save us seats?" I didn't respond. The service began at 10 sharp. They walked in at 10:12, just as the music stopped and the first speaker stood. I heard their footsteps before I saw them. My mother wore a wide-brimmed hat like she was attending a garden brunch. Melissa wore heels and a cream-colored dress, not even trying to wear mourning black. They made a small commotion settling in at the front pew, the one I'd reserved for family. As if they were the ones burying someone they loved, as if their lateness didn't matter. My mother leaned over to whisper, "You could have waited a few minutes, sweetie." I ignored her. When it came time for the eulogy, I wasn't sure I could stand. But then I saw Chloe, small, brave, sitting between Helen and Frank, and I knew I had to. For her, for Ethan. I walked to the podium, my legs trembling. My voice cracked as I began. Ethan Cross wasn't just my husband. He was the steady hand in every storm, the smile in the darkest hallway, the man who could make a 9-year-old giggle during a flu shot. He was love. He was kindness. He was home. I told the story of how we met in CPR class, how he never let me touch a dirty dish, how he wrote "I love you" on the bathroom mirror with dry erase markers, how he once snuck into Chloe's classroom dressed as a T-Rex because she was nervous about her first school play. People laughed, people cried. I ended with this. Ethan believed in showing up, no matter how tired, no matter how hard. He showed up for his patients, for his friends, for his daughter, for me. That's how I will remember him. I looked down. My hands were shaking. I turned to walk back to my seat and saw my father glance at his watch. It wasn't even 10:45. Back at our house, the reception began with casseroles and murmured condolences. Helen took charge of the kitchen. Frank helped with setup. Chloe clung to my side like a shadow. My friends rotated in, checking on me, offering to stay the night. I declined. I needed solitude. Just me and my daughter. Then, I heard it. My father's voice. "Aye, miss," from the dining room, low but distinct. The payout from Ethan's policy must be substantial. He worked at a hospital, right? Julia and Chloe'll be just fine. Probably better than fine. I didn't confront him. I didn't even look up. I just kept folding the napkins that had already been put away, over and over again. My hands needed something to do while the fire built in my chest. They stayed barely an hour. My parents said they needed to beat the weekend traffic. Melissa offered me a hug, cold, perfumed, detached. As she pulled away, she whispered, "Maybe when you're feeling better, you'll realize how important family really is." I nodded, but what I really wanted to say was, "You're not my family anymore." Not where it counts. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks since the funeral, since I stood at the podium and said goodbye to the love of my life while my parents fidgeted and checked their phones like they were waiting for brunch. Chloe had gone back to school. Her teacher said she was quieter than usual, but focused. I knew she was holding it all inside, and I tried to be strong for her. Every night she fell asleep clinging to one of Ethan's old t-shirts. I did too. Me? I went through the motions. I showed up to grief counseling. I responded to condolence emails. I made breakfast. I cried in the shower. I stared at the chair across from mine at the dinner table and imagined Ethan sitting there, asking about my day, complaining about hospital politics, teasing Chloe about her spelling bee words. The only people who consistently showed up were Ethan's parents and my neighbor Ellen. They checked in, dropped off groceries, invited Chloe over to bake cookies or paint birdhouses. And Marcus, Ethan's younger brother, called every other night from Japan. He was planning to visit in the summer to help us adjust. He'd promised Ethan he would. My own parents? Not a word, until they showed up. Unannounced. It was a Tuesday morning. Chloe had just left for school, and I was at the kitchen table sorting through insurance documents when the doorbell rang. I checked the peephole. Brad and Carol Bennett, my parents. My father adjusted the collar of his golf shirt like he was about to give a presentation. My mother, in a floral blouse and pearls, was checking her lipstick in a compact mirror. I didn't want to open the door, but I did. "I didn't know you were coming," I said. "We thought we'd check in," my mother replied, stepping in without waiting for an invitation. "See how you and Chloe are doing." "She's at school," I said. "And I'm fine." "That's good," my father said, settling himself into the living room like he owned the place. "We were hoping to have a private conversation anyway." I knew something was wrong the moment he said private conversation. My stomach tightened, but I made coffee anyway, falling into old habits, even when they weren't deserved. We sat. Awkward small talk, my garden, Chloe's school, my job. Then came the throat clearing, the shift in tone. "We wanted to talk to you about your situation," my father said, setting his mug down with exaggerated care. "My situation?" "Your financial situation," my mother said, crossing her legs. Now that Ethan's gone." I said nothing. My father continued, his voice steady, rehearsed. "We understand Ethan had a life insurance policy, probably a generous one, considering his job and age. And with the house paid off and your salary, we imagine you're in a relatively secure position." Where's this going? I asked, though I already knew. Well, my mother chimed in, your father and I have been struggling. Retirement savings took a big hit last year, and with healthcare costs what they are. We were hoping, my father cut in, you'd consider reallocating some of the insurance funds to help us and to help Melissa. She's still getting her art business off the ground. Silence. I stared at them. You want Ethan's life insurance money? I said finally, my voice dangerously calm. We're not asking for all of it, my mother said quickly. Just a fair portion, maybe half? Half. To support our future, you understand, and Melissa could use a fresh start. I leaned back, heart pounding. You mean to tell me that you couldn't even come sit with me the night Ethan died because of Melissa's birthday party? And now you want 50% of the money he left for his daughter? It's not like that, my father snapped. Family takes care of each other. We helped you, Julia. College, your first car, the down payment on this house. That's not help. That's parenting. And you've spent the last 15 years making sure Melissa never went without, while I learned to keep quiet and not ask. My mother flushed. We're not trying to fight, we're just saying, you're in a position to help. And it's what Ethan would have wanted. The room tilted. What Ethan would have wanted. I stood up. My voice was shaking now, not with grief, with fury. Ethan would have wanted you to show up, to comfort his daughter when she woke up screaming in the middle of the night, to hold my hand when I couldn't breathe from the weight of losing him. My father held up a hand. Don't get emotional. No, I snapped. You don't get to say that. You don't get to call me emotional while asking for blood money. He was my husband. He was Chloe's father. And he's dead. And all you see is dollar signs. There was a long, awful silence. Then my father stood. His voice was cold. We'll give you some time to think about it. But this isn't just about you, Julia. It's about family. No, I said. It's about greed. They left. My mother hesitated at the door, then mumbled, We love you. But it sounded hollow, like an afterthought, like a habit she hadn't broken yet. As soon as the door closed, I sank to the floor. Not crying, just exhausted, disgusted, betrayed. When I picked Chloe up from school that afternoon, she climbed into the car and asked, Why were Grandma and Grandpa at our house? I gripped the steering wheel tighter. Just talking to me about grown-up things. She was quiet for a minute, then she said, Did they ask about Daddy's money? I turned to look at her. What makes you say that? I heard Grandpa at the funeral, she said, eyes downcast. He told Uncle Rick that we'd be set for life, because Daddy died. Her voice cracked on the last word, and just like that, the dam broke. Not in front of her, but later, in the bathroom, lights off, mouth covered with a towel so she wouldn't hear me scream. They weren't just selfish, they were poison, and I knew what I had to do next. That night, after Chloe went to bed, I sat in the dark with a cup of tea gone cold in my hands. I hadn't turned the lights on. Just the faint hum of the fridge and the tick of the kitchen clock filled the silence. My phone buzzed. A text from my dad. Don't let emotion cloud logic. We'll follow up soon. We know you'll make the right decision. The right decision? I wanted to throw the phone across the room, but I didn't. I just stared at it, numb, until a calmer voice in my head, maybe Ethan's, whispered, Protect Chloe. Get ahead of them. Don't react. Prepare. So I called Ava Lynn. Ava had been Ethan's friend since nursing school, now a practicing attorney who handled our wills and estate documents. She picked up on the second ring. Julia, how are you holding up? I'm getting there, I said quietly. But I need to know, is everything secure? The life insurance? The accounts? Can my parents try to claim anything? She didn't hesitate. Absolutely not. Ethan left everything explicitly to you. Beneficiary designations are in your name. The will is signed, notarized, and airtight. Your parents have no legal standing. Even if they tried to contest, it'd go nowhere. I exhaled slowly. And what about for Chloe? He created a trust. Ava confirmed. One she can't access until she's 25, unless it's for education or medical expenses. He was very specific, very protective. A strange mix of grief and gratitude flooded me. Ethan had thought of everything. Even while facing a job that stole hours of sleep and sanity, he had quietly built a fortress for us. Thank you, Ava, I said, voice cracking. There's one more thing, she added gently. Ethan gave me a sealed envelope before his last physical, told me to pass it along only if something happened to him. I froze. A letter? I'll drop it off in the morning, Ava said. But I couldn't wait. After we hung up, I went into the home office, Ethan's space, and began opening drawers. Folders, bank records, passwords, medical files. Then, in the back of the filing cabinet, I found it. A small cream envelope. My name written across it in Ethan's familiar looping handwriting. I sat on the edge of the bed, heart pounding, then opened it. My dearest Julia, if you're reading this, I'm so sorry. I never wanted you to face this world without me. But I couldn't leave without making sure you knew. I was thinking of you and Chloe every step of the way. I didn't tell you how worried I was after my last appointment. I didn't want to scare you, but I updated everything. The insurance, the will, the trust. It's all in place. You and Chloe will be okay. But there's something I need to tell you. Your father came to me last year, twice. He asked for money, said it was an investment opportunity, but it was clearly a personal bailout. I declined, politely but firmly. I didn't want to burden you with it. But now, if they try anything again, please remember, you don't owe them anything. Not after the way they've treated you all your life. Not after how they treat Chloe. Protect her. Stand your ground. And know that I trust you completely. You are the strongest person I know. All my love, Ethan. I clutched the letter to my chest, tears falling silently down my cheeks, so it hadn't just started. My parents had tried this before. And Ethan, sweet, brave, exhausted Ethan, had never told me. He was trying to protect me. Even then, he shielded me in life. And now, somehow, he was still shielding me in death. I folded the letter back carefully and placed it in my own folder, labeled Proof. Then I heard the soft creak of a door. Chloe. She tiptoed into the room, holding something behind her back. You okay, Mom? She asked sleepily. I wiped my eyes and nodded. Just missing Daddy. She came closer, then whispered, I've been working on something. For Grandpa. For Grandpa? She nodded seriously and handed me a sheet of paper folded in half. On the front, she had written in big blue marker, Bill for being there. Inside, she had listed lines like, Sat with us when Daddy died. $0, not provided. Helped Mommy when she cried. $0, not provided. Comforted Chloe after nightmares. $0, not provided. At the bottom, total due. $0. That's all you gave. That's all you'll get. I stared at her, stunned. I heard what they said, she whispered. At the funeral, and in the car, and when I saw them outside school the other day. I just wanted them to see what they've actually done. Tears welled up again, not from grief this time, but pride. Fierce, burning, heart-splitting pride. Daddy would have loved this, I said. I know, she whispered. That's why I did it. The next day, I called Ava again. I want to be ready. For anything, I said. I'm expecting them to come back. Then let's meet, she said, and bring the letter. If they come after you again, emotionally or legally, we'll be ready. I hung up and looked at Chloe, who was now scribbling on a new sheet of paper at the kitchen table. What are you working on now? I asked. She looked up, grinned and said, Plan B. By Thursday, I received a formal email from my father with the subject line, Family Meeting, Sunday at 2 p.m. The body was brief and cold, as if written by a lawyer. We expect your presence to discuss recent events and establish a reasonable agreement moving forward. Bring Chloe. No pleas, no compassion, just a command. I didn't reply. Instead, I called Ava to inform her of the meeting and asked her to be on standby. I'm not sure what they're planning, I told her, but I want to be ready for anything. Bring Ethan's letter, she said, and bring your resolve. They're used to steamrolling you. That ends now. When I told Chloe about the meeting, she didn't flinch. Are you sure you want to come? I asked gently. You don't have to. Ellen can watch you. She looked up from her cereal and said, I need to be there, Mom. For Daddy. Sunday came. Clear skies. A soft wind. But inside, I was a storm. We pulled into my parents' driveway at 1:58 p.m. Chloe clutched a sealed manila envelope to her chest, the same one she'd been guarding all week. You sure? I whispered. She nodded, her face solemn beyond her years. Let's finish this. The moment we stepped inside, I felt the tension. My father sat in his recliner like a CEO awaiting a hostile takeover. My mother perched stiffly beside him, pearls at her throat, hands neatly folded. Melissa sat on the arm of the couch, scrolling through her phone. The room was filled with extended family. Aunt Marlene and Uncle Rick, cousins I hadn't seen in years. They'd brought witnesses, reinforcements, or maybe just pressure. Thank you for coming, my father said with mock formality. We have important matters to discuss. I'll stand, I replied. And anything you have to say, Chloe has a right to hear. This is her life too. My mother frowned. Julia, this isn't a conversation for a child. If it's not appropriate for her, I said evenly, it's not appropriate to be asking. My father cleared his throat, ready to launch. We've reviewed the situation, he began, and based on our history of support, your college education, your early mortgage, we believe a reasonable redistribution of Ethan's life insurance is fair. Specifically, 50% to your mother and me, and an additional 15% to Melissa to help her business recover. He handed me a printed spreadsheet. Melissa finally looked up. It's not like you need all of it, Jules. Daddy always said money should circulate through the family. I stared at the paper, then looked around the room. No one moved. My aunts avoided eye contact. One cousin actually sipped wine. You want 65% of the money Ethan left to his wife and daughter because you think you're entitled to it? My father's jaw tightened. It's family responsibility. No, it's theft. Thinly disguised as tradition. We sacrificed for you, Julia, my mother added. We deserve something in return. I was shaking, not from fear, but from rage held in for decades. Then Chloe stepped forward. She took the envelope from her arms and walked slowly to the center of the room. I have something to say, she announced, her voice steady and clear. Everyone froze. Sweetheart, my mother said with a patronizing smile. The adults are— No, Chloe said firmly. This is for everyone. She opened the envelope and pulled out a hand-drawn invoice, written in neat block letters. Bill for love and support. Sat with us when Daddy died. $0. Not provided. Hugged Mommy when she cried. $0. Not provided. Asked if I was okay. $0. Not provided. Helped at the funeral. $0. Not provided. Made things worse. Too much. Total value given. $0. Total claimed. Everything. You came when Daddy died. For money, she said. Not for me, not for Mommy. Just for what you thought we got. She looked straight at my parents. You don't get to ask for something you didn't earn. You weren't there. Silence. My mother began to cry. Whether from guilt or exposure, I didn't care. My father looked like he'd been slapped. Melissa muttered, This is ridiculous. She's a child. She's more of an adult than any of you, I said. And she's right. I pulled Ethan's letter from my purse, held it up. Ethan warned me you might try this. He left this letter, written months before he died, because he knew the kind of people you are. He didn't tell me back then. He was trying to protect me. But I'm done protecting your feelings at the expense of my daughter's security. My father opened his mouth. I didn't let him speak. You weren't there for Ethan. You weren't there for me. You sure as hell weren't there for Chloe, but now that you think there's something to take, suddenly you remember we exist. Uncle Rick cleared his throat awkwardly. Brad, Carol, this isn't right, Aunt Marlene murmured. They've lost enough. Chloe walked back to my side. I took her hand. We're done here, I said quietly. Do not contact us again, unless it's to apologize, genuinely, and without expecting anything in return. I turned toward the door. My mother's voice trembled behind me. Julia, please! Not now, I said. Not like this. As we walked out, the silence was thunderous, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something lift from my chest. In the car, I turned to Chloe. You were incredible. That was the bravest thing I've ever seen. She looked down. Do you think Daddy would be proud? I squeezed her hand. He'd be in awe. For a moment after we left my parents' house, it felt like everything had gone quiet. But it wasn't peace. It was the tense kind of silent hay that comes right before a storm. By the time I pulled into our driveway, I already had 5 missed calls. 2 from my mother, 1 from my father, 1 from a blocked number. I could guess who. And 1 from Melissa. The voicemail from my dad was short, clipped, and ice cold. We need to talk about this like adults. You are being unreasonable, Julia. The text from my mother, dramatic. We raised you better than this. Family deserves respect, not public humiliation. And Melissa, of course, was venomous. Even for you, that was low. Making your kids speak for you? Pathetic. Mom and Dad deserve better. So did Ethan. That last one made my hands curl into fists, so I turned off my phone. Then I looked at Chloe, who was curled up in the passenger seat, hugging her knees. She looked so small again. Not the fierce little warrior who just faced a room full of grown adults and spoke her truth, but a child who had seen far more than she should have. Are you okay, baby? I asked softly. She nodded, but didn't speak. We walked into the house, and for a while we didn't say anything. We just sat on the couch in silence, wrapped in the old blanket Ethan used to call the cloud. That night, as I tucked her into bed, she whispered, Did I do the right thing? I sat beside her. You did the brave thing. You said what needed to be said, and you did it with more grace than most adults would have. She nodded. I wasn't scared until afterward. Now I feel, I don't know, weird. That's okay, I said, brushing hair from her face. Brave doesn't mean fearless. It means you did the right thing even when it hurt. She clutched Ethan's shirt tighter. Do you think they hate me now? My chest ached. No, I said firmly. And if they do, it says everything about them, not you. She fell asleep holding my hand. The next morning, I unblocked Ava's number and sent her a full summary of the meeting. I also scanned Ethan's letter and the invoice Chloe had created, just in case. She replied in minutes. If they try anything legally, they have 0 grounds, but document everything anyway, just in case they go nuclear. I did. I also emailed Chloe's school counselor and principal, letting them know that if my parents showed up, they were not allowed near my daughter. I wasn't being paranoid. I was being prepared. Sure enough, 2 days later, they tried. The school called me at 2:17 p.m. My mother had shown up during dismissal with a bag of cookies and a soft smile. She told the front desk she was just surprising her granddaughter, but the front office had been briefed. They called me immediately. She was politely but firmly told to leave. When I arrived 15 minutes later, she was still in the parking lot, arms crossed, eyes red. I just wanted to see her, she said. She doesn't want to see you, I replied. That's not true, she said, voice cracking. She's a child. She doesn't know what she wants. I stepped closer. She knows what betrayal feels like, and she knows who was there when her father died, and who wasn't. My mother's lip quivered. You're turning everyone against us. No, I said. You did that all by yourself. She tried one more time. We're your parents, Julia. You can't just cut us off. I'm not cutting you off, I said, calm and clear. I'm giving you a choice. Either you respect our boundaries, or you lose us completely. Then I got in the car and drove away. She didn't follow. That week, I received a letter, printed on my father's business stationery, of course. Unless you are willing to come to a fair financial arrangement, we will be forced to reevaluate our relationship with you and Chloe. We urge you to reconsider before things deteriorate further. I read it 3 times. It was clearly meant to intimidate, but instead, it felt like something else. Permission. Permission to let go of the fantasy that these people would ever be the family I needed. I filed it in a folder labeled Evidence, just in case, then blocked their numbers again. The only unexpected contact that gave me pause came from my Aunt Marlene. She called from a number I didn't recognize. I just wanted to say, she began softly, not everyone in the family agrees with what Brad and Carol did. I appreciate that, I said cautiously. I only went to that meeting because I was told it was about a memorial scholarship for Ethan. I closed my eyes. Of course they lied to get people there. I'm sorry I didn't speak up, she continued. I should have. Her voice cracked a little. But I wanted you to know. Chloe was incredible. What she did, it opened a lot of eyes. Her words were kind and they helped. A little. But the wound was still raw, and the silence in the house, where Ethan's laugh used to live, still echoed like a thunderclap. That Friday night, I sat at the kitchen table while Chloe slept and began making a list. What safety looks like. No more guilt trips. No more surprise visits. No more gaslighting. Only people who show up, fully, get to stay. I taped the list inside the kitchen cabinet. The next morning, when Chloe asked what I was writing, I showed her. She read it carefully, then nodded. Can I add one? Of course. She grabbed a pen and scrawled, People who love us don't take from us. I hugged her so tight I thought I might break. She was right. We'd lost Ethan. But we hadn't lost everything. We still had each other. We still had truth. And we were learning how to use it. 3 weeks after the confrontation, Marcus arrived from Japan, earlier than planned. He didn't call to announce it. He just showed up on our porch with his suitcase, a paper bag of Chloe's favorite cinnamon rolls, and a quiet hug that broke something open inside me. I made a promise to Ethan, he said. I wasn't going to let more time pass. I'm here now, for as long as you need. I didn't realize how much I'd been holding my breath until he said that. Marcus moved into our guest room and fell seamlessly into our lives, like a puzzle piece we didn't know was missing. He helped Chloe with her homework, cooked dinner on nights I didn't have the energy, went jogging with me on quiet mornings, and listened when I finally, truly let myself cry. He would have done the same for me, Marcus said once, when I tried to thank him. No, Ethan would have done it better, but Marcus was trying, and it mattered more than he knew. Around that time, something inside me shifted. I had spent so long reacting to grief, anger, betrayal, that I forgot I could also build something. So I did. I filed paperwork to start a nonprofit foundation in Ethan's name, the Crossline Initiative, dedicated to providing mental health support and financial education for low-income families. 2 causes he'd always been passionate about. It didn't bring him back, but it brought a piece of him forward. Chloe helped too. She designed the logo, a heart with a stethoscope wrapped around it. She said it looked like Daddy hugging the world. We launched the foundation 6 weeks after his funeral. Quietly. No press, no fanfare. Just a soft opening, one small act of healing at a time. My parents, of course, continued their campaign. Blocked numbers, letters, guilt-drenched emails. None of it sincere. Just pressure, dressed up as remorse. At one point, my father even tried to go through Ethan's old colleague, Jake, to talk some sense into me. Jake responded by forwarding me the email and offering to testify on my behalf if it ever came to court. They're exploiting grief, he wrote. It's disgusting. You're not alone. Even my boss, a man I barely knew outside of spreadsheets, pulled me aside at work one day and said, If you ever need extended leave or flexible hours, you've got them. No paperwork needed. Just say the word. I nodded, speechless, because I was finally starting to see what family really meant. And it wasn't just blood. It was the people who showed up. No expectations, no demands, just love, standing quietly at the door. Then came the letter. Again. But this one was different. No official header, no typed paragraphs, just a simple white envelope, handwritten, addressed to Julia and Chloe. Inside, my parents wrote, "We've spent the last few weeks reflecting. And we see now what we didn't before. That our action, before and after Ethan's passing, were cruel, selfish, and unforgivable." They didn't ask for money. They didn't ask to see Chloe. They didn't even ask for forgiveness. They just acknowledged what they had done and said they hoped one day they could show us who they truly wanted to be. For the first time in months. I didn't feel rage reading their words. I felt something else. Skepticism, sure, but also possibility. I showed the letter to Marcus. He read it twice, then handed it back with a raised eyebrow. "Feels more real," he said. "But only time will tell." He was right. And still I didn't reach out. Not yet. Not because I hated them, but because trust is not rebuilt with letters. It's rebuilt with action, and I was busy rebuilding something else. On what would have been Ethan's 36th birthday, we hosted a backyard gathering. No speeches, no suits. Just Ethan's favorite BP ribs, beer, bad dad jokes, and old jazz playing from the speakers. Helen brought Ethan's childhood photo albums. Frank made a toast that made everyone cry. Chloe stood up with a handmade memory book she'd created. Ticket stubs, doodles, napkins with Ethan's bad pun notes, and a list titled Top 10 Dad Things Daddy Did. Number 1. He always showed up. That hit me like a freight train, because in the end, that was the difference. Not who had the most money, or who made the biggest gestures, but who showed up when the world fell apart, and who tried to take advantage of the wreckage. Later that night, after the guests left, Chloe sat beside me on the porch swing, legs curled up beneath her. "Do you think we should let Grandma and Grandpa come next time?" she asked softly. I looked at her, surprised. She didn't sound hurt or angry, just thoughtful. "They sent a letter," she added, "and it wasn't mean. Maybe they're trying." I hesitated. "Maybe?" She leaned her head against my shoulder. "I think Daddy would want us to give them a chance. If they really change. If they try the way he always did." That's when I realized something else. Chloe wasn't just my daughter. She was Ethan's legacy, through and through, kind but strong, soft-hearted but not a fool. I kissed the top of her head. "Then maybe, next time," I whispered. "But only if they come to help, not to take." 3 months after the confrontation, on Chloe's 9th birthday, another letter arrived. This time, it came with a modest gift. A hardcover book about space exploration, wrapped in navy paper with silver ribbon. A post-it note was stuck to the front in my mother's handwriting. We remembered she loves astronomy. That small detail, one they had never cared about before, caught me off guard. Inside the envelope was a note, handwritten, not typed. "We know we haven't earned your trust, and maybe we never will. But we would like to try. Not to take, not to guilt, just to show up, if you'll let us. Even for 15 minutes. Public place, your rules, your time." No manipulation, no bargaining, just a request. I showed it to Chloe. She read it silently, then asked, "Can we meet them at the ice cream place? The one with the galaxy sprinkles?" I looked at her, really looked. "Only if you want to." "I don't want to forget Daddy," she said. "But I don't want to be angry forever either." So we agreed. 15 minutes, supervised, public, no second chances. When we arrived at the ice cream shop, my parents were already there. They looked older, smaller somehow, like the armor they had always worn. Pride, control, performance had been cracked open. They brought no cameras, no grand gestures, just listened. They asked Chloe about school, her telescope, and the foundation. My mother even remembered the name of the logo she had designed. They didn't mention money or the past. And when Chloe finished her ice cream and stood up, she simply said, "Thank you for trying." That was it. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, but an opening. A door cracked, not flung wide. I sent a message later that night, carefully worded. That was a good first step. Thank you for respecting the boundaries. We'll take things slow, on Chloe's terms. To their credit, they didn't push. They sent postcards, not gifts, short emails asking how Chloe was doing, never demanding more than I was ready to give. And over time, our visits became once a month. Then holidays, always conditional, always respectful, and always with the understanding that any wrong move, any sign of old patterns, would close the door again. A year after Ethan's death, we held a second memorial. This time, we invited everyone, Kuts, including my parents. They came quietly, sat in the back, and brought a photo album I'd never seen before. Ethan as a teenager with braces, Ethan at his first nursing job, Ethan holding a baby Chloe in his arms, his eyes glassy with tears. They handed it to Chloe and said nothing. That silence said more than any speech ever could. After the service, my mother approached me. "We've been seeing a family therapist," she said. "It's been humbling." I nodded, cautious. "We've realized," she continued, "we didn't just lose Ethan, we almost lost you, and Chloe, and maybe we still will, but we're going to keep showing up, the right way." It wasn't perfect, but it was real. As for Melissa, she took longer. She posted snide things online, made backhanded comments through cousins, but slowly, even she began to unravel the truth. One day, almost a year to the day after the confrontation, she asked to meet for coffee. "I was jealous," she admitted, "my whole life. You were the good one, the steady one, the one Dad secretly respected. When Ethan died and you didn't fall apart, it made me feel small. So I acted small. She didn't ask for anything. She didn't excuse it. She just told the truth. And that, oddly, was the start of something new. We're not close. Not yet. Maybe never. But we're honest. And that's more than we ever had before." Chloe still has nights when she cries for Ethan. So do I. But the grief has changed. It's no longer a tidal wave. It's a tide, always there, but not always crashing. We've learned how to live in its rhythm. Marcus stayed in Portland. He took a position at a local university and now teaches linguistics. But Chloe just calls him Coach because he taught her how to play chess and catch a softball. Ethan's parents come every weekend. Helen bakes muffins. Frank brings crossword puzzles. And their love for Chloe is quiet, constant, and healing. As for the foundation, the Crossline Initiative now funds scholarships at 3 public high schools. Last month, Chloe helped present the first award to a student who wanted to be a nurse. She said, "My dad saved lives. Now you get to, too." On the second anniversary of Ethan's death, Chloe and I returned to his favorite lake. She skipped stones while I read from the last letter he ever wrote. Then she sat beside me and said, "Mom, I think the invoice worked." I smiled. "What do you mean?" "They're better now, not perfect, but trying. You said people can change if they see themselves clearly, right?" I nodded. Maybe they saw. And maybe they did. But even if they didn't, we saw ourselves. We found our strength, and we kept the one thing they couldn't take, our dignity. Have you ever had to set boundaries with people who were supposed to protect you? What was the moment you realized your peace mattered more than their approval? Share your story below, and tell us what part of Julia and Chloe's journey resonated most with you.